All right, guys, we are live. We've got a great group here today. We've got the famous JB. We've got the famous Rocky Road with the Texas monster truck. And we got Mr. Jason Samco, who is the expert wildlife. Jason's a man of everything. He's got it in the background. You can just kind of see it.
You guys got all these nice backgrounds behind you, like plants and nice walls. And yeah, no, this is my war room here. This is where it happens.
It's a fake plant.
Yeah, I was going to say, he's not telling you that's a medical marijuana plant there. Just teasing. But no, I appreciate you guys joining in. I guess we could do just a real quick introduction. Rocky, if you want to start yourself.
Yeah, my name's Rocky Rohde. I'm from Victoria, Texas. Y'all, I do a lot of trucks on my channel. Probably started my channel back in 2019. Everything from HD, Fords, GMs, you name it. I try to do it. I do some monster truck stuff on my channel, but besides that, that's about it.
Awesome. Mr. Jason?
Started my channel about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years, for some little piddly stuff in there. But I started it as tool reviews and overflow from my other channel to throw random stuff on, and then started talking about trucks a little bit, and the content blew up. People kept going for it more and more, and so now it's a truck channel.
That's awesome. Mr. JB.
It's been a minute. I started in 2019, kind of alongside of Rocky Road, actually. We kind of got connected back then on HD and Super Duty trucks, and from there, it just kind of grew. We did some full-time RVing, did some camping, and I think towing is probably what I'm mostly known for, and then, of course, showing payload. But, yeah, it's been a long road for sure.
It's cool. You know, it's funny you mentioned that about the payload, because I do 100% agree. When I think of payload, I think of a JB review video. That's for sure. That is for sure your signature.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. We got an agenda where we were going to talk about some different topics today, just kind of going through the motions. But I thought maybe a fun topic to start with is the recent announcement in the last week. We're all truck guys here, and one of us has just joined the Ram crew here recently, which we can dive into here in a minute. Again, he's been there before. But is Ram's announcement on a 100,000-mile warranty? And I'd just be curious to kind of get your guys' thoughts on this whole approach. This, just for me starting off the bat, is I think it's a good thing. I don't see a real downside to this. I hope this pushes the whole industry upwards per se, but there are some caveats on it that I think are kind of interesting. So I'd be curious. You just jump right in, whoever. What are your guys' thoughts?
Go ahead, Jason.
I think it's a missed opportunity. I think they dropped the ball because, you know, Kaniskis was coming out. This is a big announcement. We're going to change the world with this warranty. We're going to do all this kind of stuff. And they give a 100,000-mile powertrain warranty. You have to take delivery by 9/27/2025 to get it. This was a chance for them to really go, how about we do a 5-year 60 bumper to bumper, but after 3-year 36, maybe it costs you $150 or $200 deductible, or maybe make it a 5-year 100,000-mile warranty with a $500 deductible after a 3-year 36, or something that they're not going to lose a ton on, but would have been game changing. This here, like I said, you got the Silverados already with the 2.7's got a 100,000-mile warranty. The Titans had 100,000-mile warranty. You know, this isn't anything new. I think it's a step in a right direction. Like Barry said, it might open the doors for new things, but I think it was an opportunity where they could have came out hard and they kind of stumbled right over the line. My thoughts.
JB?
7-year 150, I would have been shocked. I think that's where they missed it at. A 10-year 100 is actually a good thing because people are financing a lot longer. And, yeah, these trucks are more expensive, so they need to. But, yeah, I think that if they really want to get people excited about the market, you know, talk about pricing. Like, be real about the market. The market sucks, right? And I don't know how you fix it, because how do you lower prices without hurting everybody else? If we all bought trucks, what does that do to our values, right? So you can't lower the price, but what can you do in regards to that? And I think the 10-year 100 was a good move, but I think a 7-year 150 would have really hit home. But the reality here is make the trucks more reliable. You guys know the problems. Just fix them.
Yep.
We understand what the EPA has done. We won't go down that road. Okay, let me stop right there. Hold on. Stop right there. I'm gonna take a U-turn.
We'll get ourselves in trouble.
Here we go. Yeah. Yeah. Just
We'll be on a watch list next thing we know.
I know. I know. We don't want that.
Yeah.
What about you, Rocky?
You know, I think it was a good move on Ram's part. I think it does hurt the 25 inventory that they've got sitting out there because this is a 26. So, you know, the dealer's already kind of having a hard time with the Hurricane and moving it, which I love the Hurricane engine, by the way. And for as many that are in production and the small amount of problems they've had, you know, you think about when they launched the Power Stroke or when they launched another engine, right? I mean, they've had tons of problems. But talking about that in the same scenario is if we look at it in the HD realm, I mean, I'm excited because now they're saying we're going to stand behind the Hurricane, right? And that kind of helps people lose a little bit of that. But what a lot of manufacturers did is everybody's like, well, I got a 5-year 100,000 on my Ford, or I got a 5-year 100,000 on my HD Ram, or I got a 5-year 100,000 on the GM all the way across the board. What they're missing is they do not have a transmission warranty. If you look at the window sticker, a lot of those transmission warranties are 50,000, even on the Power Stroke. And so when you look at the HD industry and you go, hey, we're into the HDs, they're going to give you the 10-year 100,000. That's on transmission. That's axles. I mean, guys, that's everything. You know what I mean? Even on the half tons, that's covering their CV shafts. That's going to cover differentials. I mean, you know, so I think they did put their money where their mouth is a little bit. I wish they would have gave some options to the people that had the 25, you know, even if they would have said, hey, you know, pay $1,000 and we'll grandfather this warranty to you. Right. But that's kind of my thoughts on the 30,000 foot view. So,
you know, a few points, I think, you know, JB, you bring up something really interesting. Vehicle loans are getting out. I think I've heard 7-8 years or something now. And how big of a bummer would it be to go take a note on a 60, 70, 80, $90,000 truck and be in 2-3 years out of warranty? That would really suck. You know, you already got this monster payment and now having a non-warranted vehicle. So I like that aspect that you get that distance and time. With that being said, it's not transferable. This is the thing. And I actually applaud Ram on the marketing behind the scenes, looking at the financials and the risks. What's this really going to cost them? Because they know the average buyer is keeping a brand new truck I think it's 5 years or 7 at max. So you're not going to stretch that warranty out most likely anyhow to 100,000 miles, and then you can't transfer it. And then I was pretty bummed, Rocky, when I first seen this. I'm like, dude, we just got shafted on our 25 Hurricanes. That was my first thought. And I'm like, man, I was so bummed. But then my buddy Jason's like, dude, don't think like that, because we can go get the Mopar extended warranty that would be a transferable warranty. That's the key, transferable.
And prorated
for $2,000. So it's like, if I really wanted to, I could go get a 100,000 mile warranty with probably more protection for $2,000-$3,000. And then I could transfer it to the next owner, which now puts me ahead of the situation for 26 trucks. So initially I was kind of like bummed, but then really it's $2,000. It's a $2,000 fix. Really. That's how I see. I don't know. That's kind of my thoughts. With Jason, I think right now is, I think if you had more on electrical gremlins right now, I think that's the biggest thing I'm worried about with every brand right now. It's not typically mechanical hardware failing. It's sensors and electronics.
I'd agree with that. But also just on your thing on there too, like perfect example of that prorated, you know, on that warranty thing, I just got rid of my Gladiator. And as you said, JB, talking about how we're getting in trouble with the pricing with the 25 stuff, for example, there too, I lost my rear end on my Gladiator. You know, I bought it in 2023 before the floor fell out on the prices of it, and I still got a great deal, but I got crushed with how low the prices are now on trade-in, like absolutely crushed. But I bought a 5-year, 100,000 mile warranty on that, Mopar warranty. And now as I just got this truck, I got a Post-it note right here. I already called them and got the numbers, but I can call them. And then the remainder of my Gladiator warranty, I got rid of it at 53,000 miles with, you know, and it being 2 years old. But that prorated amount is now going to just transfer right over to the purchase of my new extended warranty. I don't even have to pay the difference. It's just that easy. Done deal, you know.
Awesome. So I highlighted a comment here from Eric LaBelle. Hyundai has been doing a 10-year, 100,000 mile warranty for 20 years. I remember when they did that. And I remember back then, I'm like, dang, this is kind of a game changer. Look what Hyundai did at that point. They grew their market share big time to turn into a real player in the market. So maybe this is Ram's long-term play. And I also think too, and this is where I think you guys have probably seen the article from Tim Kaniskis. He specifically said Ram will no longer be the loss leader, and they're not going to win market share by giving product away. And I don't think we're going to see those 35% off MSRP deals like we were told we were going to see for the last, what is it, 10 months, year now? I don't think we're going to see that. So if anything, getting a little extra warranty, maybe this is what they could offer that doesn't really tap into their costs all as much. And they're hoping they're just going to start getting more volume. I don't know. I mean, the one I feel like who's on their heels right now is definitely Ford and General Motors, especially with GM, with their situation right now unfolding with the 6.2. Man, they got to do something to restore some confidence. And then you got Ford, they're setting records for recalls. So, these guys got to answer back. I mean, Ram is putting people on their heels right now. I really do believe that.
Yeah, and it makes them accountable, I think, too. You know what I'm saying? So if they have a problem, like JB said earlier, if they have a problem that they just ignore because they know that the vehicle will make it out at 36,000, they're not worried about it.
Exactly.
They're going to be a little bit more accountable to take care of that problem so it doesn't cause major issues. It's going to cost them more money in the future. So I feel like that warranty will make them do a little better job on their quality control.
Exactly.
Yeah, quick question for you guys. Have any of you ever had any mechanical failures on any of your cars?
Me, I have not ever that I can. Yes, I did. Sorry, I did. 2014 F-150 transmission valves went bad, locked up on my wife while she was driving right down the middle of the road. The whole truck skidded to a complete stop right in the middle of there, had to be towed out. It was just a simple valve thing. They had it done and changed and back to me in like 4 days. But that completely went out, done, gone. And then I had my 2019 F-150 catch on fire when it was stuck in a farm field while I was out on a Missouri hunting trip, but it caught on fire for some reason, electrical, and the whole thing burned to the ground right there.
Wow.
Okay.
What's that?
Who wants to top that?
I still didn't catch that. I'm sorry.
I said, who wants to top that?
Oh.
Yeah, complete destruction. So, I've had I bought a lot of trucks the past 2 or 3 years, and a bunch of them are just, things that are new, little glitches. One thing I haven't even said on my channel is I just got my RHO back today. It was in through the weekend, and it's just had a little bit of a hard left pull, and they haven't been able to get the alignment correct. So they just put a rack and pinion in it, and It drives like a dream, but the dealer took care of it. They gave me a loaner. I mean, absolutely, not a problem. And I do understand, because I'm a mechanic, that assembly line things, they're going to fail. I mean, you can build 1,000 of one part and 10 of them are going to fail. So I am impressed when I see an assembly line. I've been to the plants and I've seen these trucks just roll off and they start them up and they drive them off. It's an experience to see that happen, and just to see every one of those go off the line literally and hand to a customer, with the PDIs, whatever, at the dealership, that's nothing, right? I mean, they basically, and people drive those cars and get them and drive 20,000 miles with zero issues is pretty amazing to me. Sorry, I just wanted to cover that part.
Very true.
And then I'll go back to the GM. I did have some transmission valve body issues on the GM, and I did have a fuel control module leave me walking on the GM. But that's two things on the GM that did kind of burn me. But there's a lot of things I like about the GM too. So we'll cover that here a little bit later. I'll let y'all talk about it.
For sure. I would say I had a PCM fail on an 04 F-150 under warranty one time, but that's kind of electrical. Our Navigator transmission, it didn't leave us stranded, but it had that hard shift, that 10-speed hard shift, and took it to dealership. And I just thought, well, they got to do that relearn, the transmission relearn. I'm like, it probably just needs a relearn. Dealership's like, nope, you're getting rebuilt. You're getting a CDF drum, this, that, and the other. And I'm like, all right, it's under warranty. So 52,000 miles. So that I've had cam phasers done, 54,000 miles on also an EcoBoost F-150. Trying to think what else. Man, never had. I had a DEF injector go bad on an eco diesel one time under warranty. I guess that's kind of mechanical software. But when you think about the amount of vehicles, I probably had 50 vehicles. So considering like of that, like Jason's owned a ton of vehicles. I mean, if that's all you've had, that's not really that bad per se. So maybe these guys got it kind of figured out, and it's the mechanical failures are really not that big of a problem. So it's easy to add that warranty, you know? I mean, yeah.
Yeah, so you kind of answered. That's exactly where I was going. Like, I haven't had any mechanical failures with any of my cars. Now, granted, I don't keep my cars long, but I have had cars up to 50, 60,000 miles. When I worked for my old company, the Pentastar is probably one of the best engines ever. I probably put combined like over 600,000 miles on that engine, no failures. And that was actually even at 10,000 mile oil changes. So
wow,
at those mileage, had no issues with that engine. So I think a lot of times, just being honest here,
yeah,
when people do have mechanical failures, sometimes it's because of tuning or neglect of maintenance. I've actually had more conversations with people around maintenance.
Yeah.
And you'd be shocked at how some people don't know what CCV is, like on the Ram trucks, that you have to do that maintenance. And it comes up on your truck maintenance minder too, that you need a service. And people don't even know about it. They'll just clear the code because they have a filter on the car, and they just keep going. You know? Yeah. I mean, or even the fact that I don't get my diesel from just any place. Like, we have Maverick gas stations out here. I don't go there. I go get snacks there, but I won't fill up my truck or my cars there because they're not a top tier fuel station. But if you ask them about top tier fuel station, they'll know about it. When you talk about lubricity in the diesel fuel and say, hey, do you do any additives on your diesel? No. Why not? Why didn't you do that for? It's just things like that. Sometimes I think we as consumers have to be honest with ourselves too. It's not always the manufacturer. Now, they could do a better job. And I think that they've made the tolerances in the engine so tight that they're just prone to more failures. But we can do our part too to try to do what we can to make them more reliable as well.
Yeah, I agree. And one of the silver linings I hope that comes out of this engine recall for General Motors is I hope this enlightens people on engine oil viscosity and maintenance, because even if you don't own a GM62, you should be thinking, I wonder if a 0W40 is a little better on my engine than a 0W20 or 30. And maybe I should change my oil at 5,000 or 6,000 miles and not 10,000 miles, or maybe I should do the same thing. So, that's a silver lining that I hope people are able to keep their vehicles more, up to snuff on that. And I added Frank's comment here. Do you think the Hurricane engine issues has been over exaggerated some? Well, Frank, if you watch my channel, you'll see me be pretty cynical around this comment. I do think some of the issues were real 2-3 years ago on the Wagoneer and Grand Wagoneer, specifically around the water pump. I think it's the thermostat housing. But I did a video on this since then. Since it got into the Ram 1500, the thermostat is on its third revision. There's a special one for the high output engine. I'm yet to hear of a thermostat failure on a Hurricane engine in a Ram 1500. And I've talked to Mark Dodge, and they've sold thousands of these trucks, and they've not done a repair yet. And I've talked to Dave Smith in Idaho. They've not done a repair yet. And then maybe that's changed in the last few weeks. But I think the biggest issue, the Hurricane is getting a bad rap for the new electrical architecture that was also put into the Ram 1500 in 2025 at the same time. The electrical architecture is what's blaming most of these issues. And I think that people are going to see some of the same issues on the 1500 Hemi trucks as well when they come back out, because it's going to be the exact same architecture. Fortunately for me, I had a small issue at the very beginning, a wire that was broken in the rear bumper harness, but I've not had an issue since. But I will say, and I've noticed this, and maybe you've noticed this too, Rocky, this RHO sensitivity of the sensors on the bumpers is the most sensitive truck I've ever seen. Like, if your ADAS sensor has like a bug on it, I swear your hands-free driving will not work. And then you think, oh, dang, this truck's a piece of crap. It doesn't work. And you go up there and you're like, look at this little speck of dust. You clean it off, boom, it's working. When that sensor's clean, it works every time. And it's probably because the sensitivity of, they're wanting to make sure that, imagine that little speck of a bird or a bug exaggerate that out 30 yards, and next thing that dot is looking like something like a cow in the road. You know, they want to make sure you're not about to hit somebody. So
Right.
I think the Hurricane, and I just drove our 3-liter Bronco Raptor just about an hour ago, and that's a great engine too. Man, that Hurricane will put a whipping on that 3-liter in the Bronco Raptor, and I like that motor a lot. The Hurricane rips. It's got great power, and if the smoothness is any indication of quality, this is probably one of the most premium engines I've ever owned in a domestic brand vehicle.
And I'm gonna second that. And real quick, just on the Hurricane, just because we own them, and I've got 11,000 miles on mine in 3 months, so we've been driving that thing. You know, it goes back to what he says, right? Running the proper oil, doing the things that you need to do. You know, start it up, let it revs up a little bit, let it rev down before you throw in gear. You know, I mean, just the things that some people do that some people don't. Run the premium fuel. You know, if you want to run the unleaded, you can run the unleaded, but you might have catalyst problems. I mean, just all those things that you have to consider. But for me, and I'm a diesel guy, I've been a diesel guy since I was a teenager in high school. And the reason is I've always loved that instant torque. I like it. You know, you get a naturally aspirated gas engine that you got to, you know, it revs up, even the Hemi, nothing against it. But, you know, it's shifting, it's revving up, you're pulling a trailer or something like that. And I think that's one of the reasons that I really like this Hurricane engine is because it has diesel tendency. And what I mean by that is when I give it a little bit of throttle, those turbos kick in. I mean, that thing builds 32 pounds of boost in like 2 seconds, and it pulls like a diesel. And I know you just pulled your trailer. How many miles did you pull with yours, Barry?
Oh man, in the last 2 weeks, I think I pulled 1,700 miles. Yeah, something like that. And by the way, 87 octane.
Oh,
don't tell anyone.
that premium is expensive. There's no judgment here.
I had those cats glowing red.
Yeah, I did a towing video with the standard output Hurricane, and it struggled a little bit.
Did it? Really? So you know what's interesting? Have you had a chance, JB, to drive a standard output versus a high output back to back by chance?
I did.
Dude, do you notice I don't know how to explain. They are the same engines essentially, but the way they build power is almost opposite of each other. Like the standard output builds power instantly. There's like no lag, but it seems to rev out a little quicker and not have that mid to top end. Whereas the high output is a little slower to build power, but then the mid range and top end, it feels like a totally different engine. I don't know if you've noticed that.
Yeah, so I know the rear ends are totally different between standard output and high output, which is a good thing. But I think Ram had a huge fail with the high output engine. I'm just being honest, because if you want max tow, you have to get a limited or a tungsten or a longhorn.
Yeah. They should have made it more available in like a bighorn for sure.
Yeah. Or they should make a heavy half ton with that engine, because the standard output is just okay, in my opinion. I don't think that I would buy the standard output over the Hemi. I would probably get a Hemi over that one for sure.
Over the standard output? No kidding.
Yeah.
Really?
So I did back-to-back testing. I did a Hemi with the e-torque and the Hurricane standard output. And even though the Hurricane won, I like the simplicity of the Hemi, just being honest. I mean, granted, I wouldn't have the e-torque generator on it, but still, I would rather prefer that system over the twin turbos personally.
And you know, that's interesting too, because coming from your perspective, you're at elevation. And I think of sometimes your perspective is a little different than mine, because at sea level, I've got a little bit more performance than you. And you, I feel like, would feel a much bigger performance gain with the Hurricane over the Hemi at your sea level, or what are you, at 4,000 to 5,000 feet?
I mean, well, yeah, when I was doing up to 6%, it was at 6,000 when I got to the top.
Yeah, interesting.
But see,
explain for people so they know what you're talking about for the naturally aspirated, Barry, so they understand.
So most people aren't aware of every 1,000 feet you go above sea level, I think you typically lose about 3% of performance of a natural aspirated engine. So if you were at approximately 6,000 feet of elevation versus, say, Michigan at 1,000 feet, there's 5,000 feet difference. 5,000 feet times 3%. If you had a 500 horsepower engine times 15%, you're down, what is that, 75 horsepower? I mean, that's a big number. It's a big, so on a Hemi or any natural aspirated engine, you'd be down 15%. But if they design the engine correctly and a boosted engine, the engine just builds more boost. And so you don't lose that performance. But we do know in the past, there's been engines, specifically the Power Stroke. Do you guys remember this? The Power Stroke diesel, was that in 2014 or 15? They put out these big horsepower numbers, and General Motors kind of give it to them. They were pulling at elevation, and Ford did their numbers at sea level. And Ford kind of ran out of boost at elevation, and the turbo wasn't big enough to build additional boost for above sea level. And the Ford kind of fell on its face. And I'm just wondering if that standard output with the smaller turbos is kind of running out of momentum, out at your elevation. I don't know, just a thought.
Yeah, but the other thing is heat too. So when
you're building more heat. Yeah,
when you're pulling a grade with twin turbos, it has to cut power, because I noticed that even with the Hemi, it did cut power too, because cooling got so hot. I think it was at like 2, or the oil, or one of them was at like 246 degrees.
Probably oil, I bet.
Yeah. So once it gets there, the truck has to cut power. So I almost wonder if the standard output engine might go away soon too.
Interesting.
That's something I could see happening with the Hemi coming back as well.
Man,
that Hemi was screaming in that video. I think it was a 4,200 RPM when you were going up the hill. It was getting it, but like you said, it doesn't miss a beat. It's a simple, naturally aspirated. They know what they've got. I mean, that no doubt that is a good motor. And I think what they say, 45,000 orders on day one.
Wow, man, that's a lot.
Oh wow, that is a lot. I didn't know that, Mike.
Dang. That's crazy.
That is crazy.
Wow.
Huh.
They're going to be pumping them out. That's a lot of
for a tired
people will be getting their 2026 Hemi Rams in 2029.
Yeah, right.
the part that I think too, where JB said earlier that they're missing your Longhorns, your Limiteds, and your Tungstens aren't going to get the Hemi.
Right.
I understand it's Laramie and down, right? If I remember looking at the sheet right, but I think that's right.
Yeah, it's funny because they're almost doing the exact same thing that Ford has done. Whereas if you want a platinum and the higher trim levels in the F-150, you're a Power Boost or EcoBoost. You can't even get a Coyote in that. So that's interesting.
Yeah. I'm going to tick off some guys really quickly.
Sure.
I think Ram should have did? They should have called Nissan and said, hey, since you don't have the Titan anymore, can we buy your V8?
Buy your V8. Oh, that's funny.
Or Toyota too. I mean, hey.
Yeah.
Right.
Could you imagine a Toyota one? Yeah.
Yeah, because
the thing is, the Toyota
run forever.
Yeah, the Toyota one would have been ideal because it's probably more reliable than a Hemi, and it doesn't get worse fuel economy.
And I think all those weren't they, JB? All those were 5.7 liters, weren't they? Pretty sure. Toyota.
Toyota was 5.7 from 2007 on, and then they had the 4.7 before that, and then Nissan's been a 5.6, I believe.
Yep, 5.6.
All about the same liter. It's funny how all these engines end up, 5.7. All the turbocharged are ending up at the 3 liter. I mean, 3 to 3.5. It's just,
Well,
sorry, go ahead.
All I was going to say is, what's cool is that Ram is offering these options of standard output, high output. Now they got the Pentastar, obviously they had, and now the Hemi coming back, and maybe another Hemi's coming. Stay tuned on that. But having all these options, Ram's just going to sit back and look at the data and say, what makes sense now? What do our consumers want, our customers want, and make plans around it? And if that's the case, maybe if budget is a focus and they can make that Hemi a lot cheaper price than the standard output, maybe it makes sense to standard output just to go away. I don't know.
I ran the poll on that, the 392 versus the Hurricane versus the Hemi. Y'all, they better release that 392 and that 1500. I mean, if they do that, they're going to take the market. I think they'll take the full market share with that 392, and they can add a $2,500 or $3,000 upcharge for that 392, and people will pay it. Y'all, we had that 392 in the Jeep, and that motor was bulletproof, amazing, good power, and the sound is. You think that 5.7 sounds good?
Yeah, 392 sounds great.
That 6.4 sounds really good when you start it up in the morning.
Wait, Scatty Pack 1500s.
Yep.
We're going to be, what you're going to see? You're going to see every knucklehead get one of these things in every corner. You're just going to be hearing whole shots across the country. Because that's when you see a 392 Charger Challenger, just wait till him get to a stoplight, because I guarantee this dude's going to pull a 0 to 60 as fast as he can go every single corner. So
every single time.
Yeah, well, like someone just said, this Martin mentioned, a street truck 1500 with the 392 to compete with the F-150 Lobo. Yeah, totally agree. And I think I think that would be a really good combo right there, because I think that Ram's got Ford beat on the transmission. I think the ZF transmission is a far better trans than the Ford 10-speed 10R80. It's just, man, you don't need the 10 gears in that truck. 8 is just, it suffices good, and it's reliable.
I want to make a comment on that. I think we should all comment on the 8 versus the 10. I had the 25 HD Ram, y'all, that 8-speed, and I love my Fords. Y'all know I'm a Ford guy at heart, always have been. But I had shift flares on everything 23 and up, just that where it kind of flares out every time. And it just feels like it's always searching for that gear, and even on the 10 speeds on the half tons, they do, it's more options, but it's always like it's hunting a little bit, where I feel like that 8-speed in that Ram for years, even with the Hemi, that baby shifts on point, on time. It knows where to be. And I think they really, on the ZF and the HDs, they nailed it on that Cummins. I mean, 100%. JB, you've driven a bunch of them, too. So
yeah, you don't need 10 gears. I'm still shocked that GM and Ford went with 10, even with the SUVs. I thought 8 was enough, as long as you gear it correctly. And I think the 342 with the Ram, like you said, it's almost perfect. And just like with the gas engines with the 373, it's almost perfect. You don't have the gear hunt, and when it downshifts, you're just always in the broadband. I feel like Ford might be the worst for the hunting, I think.
Yeah.
GM is the smoothest 10-speed. I will say that to anybody and stand behind it. They know how to program that 10-speed. They know how to make that thing shift. It never hunted. And then that's one thing that where I'm a Ford guy, I'm going to give it to GM on the shifting and the towing. That transmission and lockup, everything in it just knows where to be all the time. They've done a great job. So I just want to put that out there.
I completely agree. Dude, their 10-speed and the Duramax behind their V8s across the board, I think their 10-speed trans is like on point for sure. And I think that is an awesome segue into the next point around HD trucks. I'm looking at here, one of the questions. If we've all owned HD trucks now, all of us, in multiple brands of each. If you're going to buy an HD truck right now today, what would it be and why? I got to start with you, Jason, because you're the fresh kid here.
I'm the oddball, and I bought it because for me, I live in the swamps. I hunt and fish basically for a living. I'm out there.
Swamp man.
What's that?
You're swamp man.
Yeah, but I'm in it for 200 to 300 miles a week in the actual swamps, and so for me, I need the off-road capability. So Power Wagon or an F-250 Tremor were really my only two options. Chevy's ZR2 is incredible, but with the amount of the washes and where the roads are washed out and the stuff I got to deal with, I'd rather have a solid front axle, and the ZR2 is open front diffs, where the Tremor, at least you got the torsion like limited slip, and then when I get in a Power Wagon, I got true front and rear lockers. So for me, that's my only option. And it's funny because I just posted all these videos about that truck, and the number one comment I get is, people are like, well, you paid all that money to get a truck that only tows, it only payloads 1,500 pounds and it only tows 10,000 pounds. I'm like, yeah, I even paid $8,000 extra to get it that way.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't understand really what the Power Wagon is. It's not a regular. This thing is a Jeep Wrangler Rubicon in a truck form, and if it's the Tremor is an awesome truck. Some of us have owned it. It's a great truck. But if you're someone that's in serious off road, what Jason is doing, and you get the articulation in the axles and the shorter wheelbase and that 5-link rear suspension. Dude, the Power Wagon's kind of in a league of its own versus the Tremor, I think. And the other thing is, I've had an F-250, 350 Tremor, and multiple Raptors with the Torsen front diff. I'll say it, and I might upset some people. I am not a fan of Torsen front diff at all, especially if you live in northern climates like I live and where Jason used to live. If you tow in the wintertime, that Torsen diff, when you're going down the road and there's snow, imagine there's snow underneath this tire and not underneath this tire. That front axle doesn't know what to do in 4-wheel drive. And it's constantly like torque vectoring back and forth. And man, when you're towing a snowmobile trailer in the wintertime, in snow and on loose conditions, it's a sketchy feeling. And the last few times in one of my Raptors, I got to my destination, 500 miles towing, and all I can smell is differential that, the smell of differential oil. It stinks really bad because there's so much heat in that front differential. It's venting smell from the differential hose in the wheel or the engine bay, and it's coming into the cabin of the truck. And I'm like, dang, what is that smell? Next day I go out to my truck, it's gone. The truck's cooled down. I pull the trailer back home 500 miles, and all I smell is that smell. I get back home, smell's gone. And I think this is part of the reason why Ford secretly went away on that Torsen front diff on the Raptor up front. Because I think a lot of people, other than 1% of off-roaders, they don't like that Torsen diff up front. And this is where, once again, the Power Wagon, I think, is at an advantage. It's got a selectable locker. You want it open up front? Cool. You want it locked. So I think the Power Wagon's a pretty sweet truck.
Yeah, I dig it. I'm loving it.
Yeah. Does the Tremor Super Duty, that has an LSD up front, right? It
does. It used to have a Torsen, but they went away. And I think personally, for guys that use their truck in a hardcore environment, but not rock crawling, I actually think it's a better option, because if that front differential fails, it'll just be an open front diff. It's not a big deal. It fails open. Whereas if that Torsen front diff fails because it's getting overheated, dude, you're sitting on the side of the road. You're in trouble.
Yeah. See, the 150 still uses a Torsen right now. So Tremor does, and you can still put a Torsen on. The 250, I thought was Torsen. Actually told you, Barry, that told me that you don't think, because they went from the Dana 60s to what is it now?
It's 235 or whatever. It's
and they dumped the Torsen, and now it's actually it's a LSD in there.
Yep.
Rocky, did you ever take the Tremor off road?
I did a little bit. I will say I had the 7.3 Godzilla motor, and that engine is super capable. Towing my camper would get 4 miles to the gallon, which it was a very large camper, but that truck had 430 axles, and the capability of that truck. And this is like, Jason, I mean, you know, for a 70, gosh, that was a Lariat Tremor with pretty much everything on it. And, being a gas truck, I mean, that truck was 70-something thousand. And when I went to trade it in, I almost got all that money back from that gas one, which is the topic we were talking about. But JB, you need to answer the, what would be your pick truck?
Oh man, dude. What
would you buy today?
Jeez, man. Is anyone from my channel here? I can't answer.
Oh, you got 200 people following you, so don't say the wrong thing.
Man,
wait, hold on. The Ford CEO just turned in. He wants to see what JB is going to say.
I was looking down like, what happened? Yeah, I don't have a favorite HD truck, honestly, but if I had to go buy a truck tomorrow, man, this is gonna suck. It would probably be a Ford if I had to go pick a truck tomorrow.
For an HD.
For an HD truck.
Yeah. Okay.
I'd probably get a gas. If I had to get a truck tomorrow, I'd probably get a gas 7.3.
Gas 7.3.
Yeah.
All right. And Jason obviously went gas HD Ram. And Rocky, what would you do?
I'm gonna give you a short answer, the best I can. Okay. The GM provided the best stability, but the mechanical part is what I fear the most.
Yep.
With it, right? Especially right now with everything going on. But towing that 45-foot camper with that independent front end, there is no truck that gives you the confidence like that truck gives you. And also having the all-wheel drive and being able to utilize that in bad weather.
Great point.
That's where the independent for us in South Texas. I'd love having that all-wheel drive. Another reason, like if the wife's back in the boat ramp, how you try to teach them how to put it in four-wheel drive and pull out and all, and it's locking the hubs in and all that stuff. And just being able to put that thing in auto and them to be able to back in and pull out when you have a large boat and not sit there and peel out. And just all those things are really nice. But I think I'm gonna agree. If I'm buying an HD today and not having the RV. Now, if I had my RV and I was doing a lot of trips, I'd probably look at the diesel. But with the emission stuff that's going on with all the diesels and all the issues with catalyst, and hopefully they get some of that squared away, today it's going to be the gas. And I think I would be sitting in the same boat as JB. I would probably go with the 7.3 Tremor, and that would be my choice.
I'm going to sound basic here, but dude, I do the same thing. Honestly, like there'd be two trucks for me right now. I just came out of a Ram HD like Jason just got. So I like the idea of the Ram. I love that Ford Godzilla. It's every time I've towed with it, that thing is just blown my mind, especially at sea level. JB, your mind would be blown if you like it in Utah towing. You'd be blown away at how much better it does at sea level. I mean, when I did my towing comparison, only 8,200 pound travel trailer versus my Cummins, I was like, oh man, dude, there's no way a 7.3 gas engine will be able to hold 9th, 10th gear on the highway like my Cummins cabin in overdrive. And it did it. And I'm like, mind blown. I'm like, are you kidding me? And then I'm like, all right, 7.8 miles per gallon with the Godzilla or 9.4 with the Cummins. And then I got to deal with DEF. And then I got to deal with all this other malarkey. If the fact that we've all owned diesel trucks and we'd all switched to gas should be pretty telling. Jason's had both, just made a decision. Rocky's had a bunch. I've had a bunch. JB's had a bunch. I would do the same thing. And then the other truck, I'd say, I like the Super Duty Godzilla, and I would do the Godzilla because it looks sweet, or the Trimmer because it looks sweet. 35s, 430s, all that jazz. I think it's the best value because you're getting the better rear axle, you're getting the better gearing, you're getting, the locker in the rear and the running boards. But the truck I'd do a ZR2 also. I really like that ZR2 2500. Those Multimatic shocks like you've got. I think I do gas though. I wouldn't do the Duramax. Yeah. It's just if I'm not going to tow regular 7,000 pounds and higher, imagine none of us have travel trailers right now. Imagine that, or fifth wheels. Would you still get a 2,500? I'm not, for sure. I'm 1,500 all day long.
I'll comment on that real quick because I left Ram out of my HD equation, and I want to say this, and maybe they're listening, maybe they're not, right? I'm a feature guy. I like the hands-free driving. I like the power tailgate for my kids. I like the heads-up display. I like all those things, and if you look at all those trucks today, the one that carries most of those features in their HD, the lane assist, everything, is going to be the Ford.
Yeah, you're right.
And so I went from a 25 HD Ram back into the 1500 RHO. What's it missing? It's missing the hands-free driving. It's missing the electric tailgate. It's missing auto high and low beam headlights. Sounds like something small, but hey, I'm having to use the clicker, So I just, I really, I think that's what pushes me to the half-ton segment, because there's a lot of features that you're not getting in the HD. So I really wish they would carry those features back up to the HD when you're buying a top of the line trim, right? I mean, if you're not, you're not, but if you are, then you are. So I just wanted to put that out there.
I completely agree with you. And it's one of those things where it amazes me sometimes, like as an example, the Super Duty lost leather in a Lariat for 25, but the F-150 kept leather in a Lariat for 25. And I've seen Ford do these sort of things in the past where it's like the same trim level in the HD gets a little less content. And it's one of the reasons I've liked the 1500 also. But yeah, there you go. This Martin says Ram 2500 6.4 any day sub for 60K. I mean, that's Jason's right there. That's his MO. I mean,
I will say though, honestly, if I had to pick my favorite motor for an HD, it's the 7.3 all day long. Oh, yeah. If I get the stuff a 7.3 in my Power Wagon, I'd have done it.
Yeah.
Well, it's just the Ford just came out really strong back in 2020 when they introduced the 7.3. They caught GM asleep at the wheel because they had the 6-speed. Ram just added the 8-speed, I think, for 2019 for the Ram HDs, but they didn't really add any power to the truck. So even from then till now, I think, and Ford's already done some updates to the 7.3 for, I think, what
23. Yeah, that's a good point. Not a lot of people know that, actually.
Yeah,
well,
I think they do. Yeah, go ahead.
When you look at, like, I just talked about this in a video, people ask about my truck, but that Ram 6.4 that I have in mind, that Hemi 6.4, on paper, it's 429 pound-feet of torque. Parked right next to it is my wife's ZR2 Colorado with a 4-cylinder turbo in it that's pushing 430 pound-feet of torque. It actually, I mean, and then you got to, if I could choose, I actually want the motor you guys got. I want the high output Hurricane in my truck. If I'm going to get 13 miles a gallon, why not do it with another 100 pound or another 100 pound-feet of torque and a straight inline six with all that torque being super low? I'll take it all day long. So, everybody's got their opinion. Now, I'm not knocking this motor, but when you think about Ford and what they've done, they're up there too. They're another 100 pound-feet of torque in that 7.3, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But the thing's a beat, or maybe 50 or whatever it is, but it's a rock solid, amazing motor. I love the 7.3.
But to your point, on the Power Wagon, they could do that because they have the 8565 GVWR. So I think that it doesn't really even fall under a HD truck anymore.
That's a good point. You're right, because it's not a 10,000 pound GVW.
Yep.
Wow.
So they could do that, actually.
Mind blown. Yeah. Dude, that's
call them up,
interesting.
hook them up, tell them I'll send mine right over. Throw it in.
Interesting. Could you imagine you got those turbos, like no boost, no lag, in a Power Wagon, just that super low, and that's
and an inline six to power that torque right there.
Yeah.
It's coming out. It idle. It's right there.
Yep. That's pretty cool. Well, that's a good point. So we all said we've all had diesels, and we'd still choose gas. And, for me, I could go either way. For me, I look at the end of the day, what puts the most money back in my pocket at the end of the day? And I think 10 years ago, I would have had a different answer, because I think diesel was always a better return on investment for guys like us. Dude, we're not professional hotshotters. We're not PD diesel, or we're not these guys that are running 25,000 pound loads across the country. They're going to be diesel all day long for sure. The recreational guy that's pulling a trailer like we do, I just don't see the ROI anymore. Diesel's always been 15 to 25% more expensive fuel. Oil changes have always been worse. Maintenance has always been worse. But you did it because you'd get it back at resale. And I've mentioned this before. I think I was telling Rocky this the other day. I'll pay $12,000 for the diesel engine option over the Godzilla if, when I go to sell the truck, I get $15,000 more than the Godzilla, because then that's a good investment and I use my money wise. But if I pay 12 grand more for the option and I go to trade it in 4 years later and the truck's worth 8 grand more, I'm 4 grand behind. I should have just bought the Godzilla and kept the money in my pocket. So
that's what I think I commented on JB's video today about that, because, y'all know inventories are up on diesel 1-ton, $90,000 to $100,000 trucks. They're everywhere. So what's that going to do to MMR, right? We know resale on them, MMR, when the supply is up, the value is going to be down on them. And so, I think people are fearful of spending that kind of money. And what's your resale 2 years from then with 20,000 miles on it? And you take that gas engine, like we're talking about, you go buy that truck and you buy it for 74 and you drive it for a year or two and you get 68 or 65 for it. That's not horrible numbers in comparison to you go buy the diesel at 90 to 100 and you go trade it in 2 years from now and you get the same 75, 78 offer, right? So I think
and that's one of the reasons that I've always said too, like a bunch of times, like you were saying, like Barry, you just said you'd take 1,500 or you'd go 1,500 over HD if you didn't need it. Me personally, I'd stay in the HD world. I'd rather do it because of the return on investment.
Yeah, that's true.
There's so many 1,500s available, used everywhere. They don't hold their value like an HD does.
You're right. I should have said that. You are 100% right on that. That's where an F-250 XLT Tremor gas. Holy cow. That's like a free truck you could drive for a few years. I think that's a really great truck from that. So here's another question. So what's the best towing truck you've towed with? I'd be curious your guys' comments. I'll just say this. I've towed a lot of trucks long distance, and we get a lot of wind here and in bad weather. And you guys, if people watch my channel, they know I'm arguably a Ford fanboy. Yes, I have a Ram today. With that being said, up until my RHO, I would say the GM trucks are the best towing trucks I've found. The stability, I feel like they feel more stable than the Fords. I'd just be curious your guys' thoughts.
I want Rocky to go first on this one.
I'm going to say that I have to agree with Barry on that. I really the stability, pulling a 45-foot toy hauler down the road at 65, 70 miles an hour, y'all, the stability was just there on the GM. I mean, I felt comfort and one hand on the wheel. You know, the Ford does a really good job, but the wind would affect it. The sway seemed to affect it a little bit more. You know, just the tall loads that catch the wind and stuff like that. You know, so for me, you know, if it wasn't for the mechanical issues, 100%, the GM, I feel like, was one of the best towing. But there's nothing that beats the power of that Power Stroke. If you have a trailer and you need to pass 3 cars,
Animal.
it's an animal. I mean, 100%. Like, if you want the race car, and I think PD Power said this a long time ago, this one's the toy, this one's the workhorse, right? And I think he had that in a pretty good deal. So it depends on your situation, but that's my thought.
I'm out of this one because I don't tow. I've not towed with all 3 of them yet. So I have no comparison other than, you know, Ram. My last one was a 2019 Ram 2500 Cummins, and I towed a lot with that, but that's it. So I'm out of this equation.
Well, hold on. Which one, Jay, when you're drinking your Mountain Dew and your Doritos, could you do it more comfortably in?
Well, I spent a lot of time driving a Ford Super Duty with the 7.3, and I like that a lot. But honestly, like I said, I love that Ram, that 2500. We towed that camper crisscross across. You know, we towed it from, you know, Georgia to Kansas, to Michigan to Kansas, back and forth from Georgia to Michigan 17 times. You know, we towed that thing everywhere. We put 80,000 miles on that thing in 3 years just towing, and I straight up loved it. It was by far incredible on every level. Never one hiccup other than the CP4 was on recall that they didn't have done for that yet. It wasn't, or whatever it was, the fuel pump, which by the time I sold it, they still hadn't got them in, you know, so but that truck was absolutely flawless. I loved it. But I, again, never compared the other ones to them. Now, I've drove a lot of the new Silverado HDs, and that independent front suspension on the road is, you can't beat it. It's incredible, especially when you start going down some of these industrial drives with all this pothole washed out, ripped up from the semis. I mean, the thing's just incredible. But towing, like I said, I'm out. I got nothing between them.
Yeah. Well, let me give you the worst one first. F-150s are the absolute worst trucks to tow with. People are going to disagree with me, but aluminum bodies are good. They have their benefits. But when you're using a truck for truck stuff, you need the weight. And that F-150, I've done 3 tests, one of which I didn't even post. It was so bad. Now, the power boost is better because of the extra weight with the battery and the hybrid system. But as far as half tons go, I think GM trucks are the best in the half ton segment. There's no comparison. I think Ram is probably second place, but I think it almost ties with the Ford, honestly, for last place too. As far as the HD segment goes, I'm with you guys. GM is not the best in the HD segment for me. I would say that I think Ram kind of takes the cake. If you get a mega cab or long bed Ram HD, I just love the Cummins. I think that the power delivery is great, but it's not about speed for me when it comes down to towing. I like to show speed, to show like a basis point, but stopping is the most important part. And of course, stability. And Ram has the air suspension options. They have the overloads. If you get a dually, you have the axle wrap leafs. I mean, they really do focus the most on towing. So if you're looking, and when you think about hot shot, and I know a lot of guys disagree with me on this too, but when I go out, I always see Ram trucks doing hot shot.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
You see a Ford truck. Ford truck too.
You never see a GM.
You never see a GM.
Never. You're right.
Now, the reason why that is because GM guys use their trucks for play. And that's why GM guys buy trucks, because they tow their side-by-sides, their toy haulers. Yep, their campers. Yep. That's what GM buyers get for towing. A GM truck to tow their toys. That's just how it works. But if you're doing heavy towing, long distance, a lot of miles, the Cummins is still the king for that.
Couldn't agree more. I don't know how to explain it, and I always had wanted a Cummins. That's why I'm so glad I had one. Going from the high output Power Stroke, man, I don't know. People can say whatever they want. It feels like it's got 50% more power than the Cummins. I'm serious. It's not a little. It's massive. And I don't know what a 25 Cummins feels like with their new high output and the 8-speed. I'm sure it's a lot better. With that being said, for long haul towing, I'd still take that Cummins over the Power Stroke. I don't know how to explain. There's this like comfort zone when that engine just gets in that zone, dude. It's just like, yep, you're not going to win a race. You're not going to win a race, but that comfort on the highway towing and hauling, I don't know how to put it other than this. I have a little lip in my driveway. When I back my truck into the garage, I put my truck in the garage. My front tires get caught in that little lip, and you need torque to pull it through that lip. It just seems like something silly. I'd never had a truck before my Cummins that I could idle into my garage and it would pull right through that little dip. And the first time I did it, I'm like, what just happened? This thing just pulled itself through. I'm like, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Not my Raptor R, not any other truck, not my high outputs, Power Strokes, nothing. Everyone, you got to tap the gas a little bit to get it through that hump, to get it in the garage. Not the Cummins. That thing just diesels right in there. And yeah, it's that inline six. And then that's why I think that's all part of why the Cummins engine brake is so good. It's just hard to believe how good that thing is.
And look how, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I want to say this. Okay. So if you think about the Cummins, and just one thing to think about today, right? If we were to purchase a truck today that had no warranty, 3 trucks on the market, and they brand new, we had to buy one, no warranty, it's the Ram Cummins every time. And if you take, and I tell you today, go look at the value of a 20-year-old diesel Ford, a 20-year-old diesel Ram.
Yeah, good point.
A 20-year-old, right? You know
yeah.
where I'm going.
Yeah.
Those things are almost, I mean, an old 12 valve right now that's in decent shape, you're talking about 37, 38 grand, maybe even 40 on the interior, right?
Yeah. You'll see people take trade a Ford GT for an old 12 valve.
Right. It's just a motor in a shopping cart because the frames are gone, but it's still there.
Right. Yeah. Oh, that's funny.
That's actually a good point with like gas engines too. So again, that's a good
Godzilla.
point.
I think we're going to look back in the future in 10, 20 years from now. And I think people are there's going to be a few years of the hiccup with the Godzilla, but I think you're going to see Godzilla and the 6.4 Ram seems to be pretty solid. I think also because the 6.4, people don't realize this, the 6.4 and the 392 are actually different engines. The 392's hopped up quite a bit with the cams, and it seems to have a little bit more lifter issues. I found the 6.4 doesn't seem to have those issues as much, valve train related. I think the GM, that 6.6, what is it? The L8T. I think it's a solid engine, and it's probably just as reliable of an engine as the Godzilla, but it's got one fatal flaw to me: high pressure fuel pump. And for that and the direct injection with the intake valves, that's the thing I think long term I just wouldn't personally want, but because I think otherwise it's probably a better built engine. GM really crushes it on their V8s as long as they don't get a recall or something like that.
Yeah, they should.
Ford's got all the recalls.
Yeah, Ford's got that.
And I know we won't run down this road, but emissions and MDS and cylinder deactivation has caused all these problems for the V8, y'all. So hopefully they get this emission stuff worked out and they get rid of that MDS, and then we can go back to not having any problems with V8s, because it really, the manufacturers, I think JB and I talked about this the other day, manufacturers should have stood up and said no, but in the same sense, they said yes, and then they put this MDS on these engines, and it just killed them.
So I never was able to share this stuff in the past just because of my background and with my customers. I've been in the automotive industry for over 20 years, working with tier 1, tier 2, and OEMs. I used to work with the EPA and CARB, and because I was in the emissions compliance industry as far as like the DPFs, all that stuff, exhaust related components. It's called after treatment. I was in a meeting one time, and the EPA and CARB was at this meeting. And I watched the vice president of Volvo Trucks, John Deere, and I think a person at General Motors just ream CARB and EPA. I mean, it was uncomfortable. I mean, it was almost like finger pointing. You guys are going to make the end consumer raise price an extra $10,000, $15,000. It's going to come at reliability. This is going to slow down the food industry, agriculture, and they're just blasting. And these guys were pissed, straight up, not happy. These guys, vice presidents, were fighting basically the regulators and these rules. I saw it firsthand. not many people have that opportunity to see that firsthand. So I think the OEMs tried to. It's just the regulators just were like, hey, sorry, you don't have a good engineering design, blah, blah, blah. It's not reliable. Everybody's playing by the same rules. And it's not really fair because it's not everybody by the same rules. It was 3 players. It's not like there are 10 there's not 10 companies making heavy duty trucks in America. There's 3. And so they're all just trying to do the best they can. Anyhow, I think moving forward, it'll be really interesting to see what the diesel regulations turn out to be for 2027 and beyond. That's going to be the real interesting thing. But for me, I don't care what they are, unless, Ford, GM, Chrysler could increase the reliability, increase the fuel economy, or some way make the value proposition of a diesel better in the future. I'm going gas. I just think it's the more logical choice moving forward.
Yeah. I agree.
Jason, question for you. 2 or 3 features, if the manufacturer were listening today, what are 2 or 3 things or features you would change about a new truck?
You guys hit on it, the big one 2 times already today. JB hit it on it right in the beginning. Barry just hit on it again. And you actually hit on it about a half hour ago. It's the reliability factor is the biggest one. Okay. I don't care what it costs. I don't care. The market will stabilize because people can only pay what they can pay. But the reliability is gone, and not gone, but it's just not there anymore. We hear the horror stories everywhere. People have got problems everywhere. Toyota's got 100,000 motors down. GM's got 600,000 motors down. It's just everything is the reliability needs help. And then the biggest one, my biggest problem I have with every single manufacturer out there is part delays and part back orders. That drives me nuts. I got a buddy just Chevy ZR2 thing went down for a power brake boot or brake booster on that thing went down, and her master cylinder. For a master cylinder, they're telling them it's going to be 4 months to get a master cylinder. Truck's dead in the water. And we see this stuff all the time, and these guys are just like it's on back order. Now, every one of us can remember we go back 15 years ago. You brought your truck in for something. They look at it and they call you back on the phone and they say, hey, it needs this and we're going to have it here. We don't have it in stock, but the truck will bring it here at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. See you at noon. And it was done. Mm-hmm. Now you get a phone call and they tell you that your truck's down and its parts on back order. It's going to be 3 months before you get it. Mm-hmm. That one's my biggest. Those are my biggest problems I have with every single truck today. They just won't make them well enough to get through. Ford's at 60-something recalls, and we're just got out of the first quarter of the year. Yeah. Not only did they break all their records, they're going to break a record of being the most recalls of any brand in history in a year. And they were supposed to be doing better the last 3 years in a row. So, it's just every single brand reliability. Bring us reliability and give us some parts to work on them,
JB, you 2 or 3 features?
I would just say bring fun back to buying a car and a truck today. I think that Toyota did it back in 2007, 2008. I love when they added that supercharger. That was the most coolest thing. I used to work at a Toyota store at the time, and I remember we had a bunch of guys dropping to $10,000. They were getting the brakes, the sway bars. They were doing all of it, and the lowering springs. And it was not cheap in that time, it was not cheap, and people were paying it. And so just like how you guys talked about bringing back the 392. If Ram did that, it would just blow up the truck market in the half-ton segment. I know the Lobo was a good idea, but it's a street truck. I want the 5.0 for towing too. Give it to every trim level. So I would say just bring the fun back, and then obviously get rid of that pro trailer backup assist. I hate that little dial. Can't stand it. Every time I see that, I'm like, I want to rip it out and just throw it out.
But you can't. But with that, I did a TRX video a long time ago, back when I had my TRX. I backed up like 20 miles an hour with a trailer straight down the road. You can haul backwards with no problem. That thing will autocorrect. I put it reverse. I think I was doing 18 on the speedometer. And I was like, look at this. Hands free. You don't have to worry about it.
That's really cool, actually. Okay, you might have sold me on it then. I might have to try that out one day.
Rocky's like, have you ever heard supercharged wine in reverse?
Yeah. Along with the gears.
What about you, Barry? You got any features you'd like to see come or go?
You know what's funny? So for me, I feel like I got more than 2 or 3. So for instance, one of the things with GM, I like a lot of what they're doing right now. I think they've done a great job in their interiors to making it look like kind of almost like a best in class, like kind of looking interior. The wax coated frame is a big problem for me with how I use my truck. It just doesn't work. I'm in dirt roads a lot, and that thing is a mud rust magnet, so it doesn't work. I wish they'd offer an e-coated option. I'd pay for it. So that's a big deal in northern climates or off-road. That's one. If Ford dropping that secure code on the side of the truck, that's a big thing that annoys me. Those are the kind of things that annoy me. The other thing, I hope Ford doesn't get rid of and go like the Expedition, where they've got just an infotainment screen that powers everything. You lose HVAC controls. Everything's digital. And so now you want to do a simple function like move your seat or steering wheel. You got to go through this crazy menu on your thumb. And I'm like, dude, give me physical buttons. And this is where Toyota, I think, is doing a great job in their Tundra Sequoia. You still have physical buttons. But of all right now, set it all aside, hands down, it's reliability. Like I just got too much going on in life that if I have a breakdown or a problem, I don't care if the thing's under warranty. I don't want to be at the dealership in the first place. I don't want to be dealing with this inconvenience in my life. Or worse yet, how many times you guys had a camping trip or a family trip planned and your truck is broke down and they give you a Cherokee and they expect you to go pull as your rental car. You're going to go pull your travel trailer or whatever. It's like you got this whole 6-month agenda set for a trip and your truck is broke down. So reliability for me right now and affordability, I think, is number 1 and 2. And then third after that, hands down, JB nailed it. Bring fun back to the truck market. And if they did, I couldn't agree more. If they put a 392 across the board, put it in a sportier suspension, put it in an off-road, put it in a standard model, Rebel, doesn't matter. That thing will sell like hotcakes. And I will bet you money Ram brings this out. And then Ford's going to have to answer back somehow. Right. But they don't have a 500 horse V8 natural aspirated. Ram's kind of going to have, they could have that market cornered. There will not be a competitor yet. Maybe this new small block General Motors has got coming on will get there. The other thing after that is connectivity. I'm finding the connectivity specifically in my Ram. I'm going to talk about this in a future video. This thing doesn't it gets homesick. If I'm on a trip and I'm gone more than 3 to 5 days, my CarPlay by day 4 or 5 will not work on my iPhone. And I thought, this just can't be. This is just too ironic. This doesn't make sense. I've done this now last 3 weeks. I've noticed it. I've been gone. When I get home, I just proved it again today, and I got it all on video. My truck reconnected in my garage to our Wi-Fi at our house. Over there, updates. Truck gets home. Magically, CarPlay works the next day on both my phone, my wife's phone. It didn't work yesterday on a 250-mile drive home. We had, you're removing, you're making sure your updates on your phone, everything's fine. Connectivity is super annoying when you're driving long distance. I want that working good. You know what I mean? And I'm probably being hard on Ram a little bit because I'd still buy another RHO in a heartbeat. I think the truck is awesome. I think that if we want all of our dreams to come true of affordability, reliability, all of this stuff, I'm just curious, what do you think would motivate 3 companies to get more competitive? Because I'm going to tell you mine. It ain't 3 companies. We need more competition in the U.S. market, and that might not make Ford, GM, Ram, or those guys happy. But if we want better pricing, more affordable, better quality, we need more competition. We need more people in the U.S. market to push the legacy manufacturers to produce the products we want.
Yeah, very true. Yeah,
I'm going to cover the 3 real quick for me.
Yep.
I cannot believe that we went this long and the manufacturers have not done this for us. I'm going to give GM props on this one because you can shut off the triple horn honk in the screen, or it doesn't honk at you and deafen your kids when they walk around the front. Like, point. Come on, Ford, come on, Ram, put it in the screen, let us disable it. Okay. Good point. Next thing, TPMS. Let us adjust it. Put it in the screen and just let us adjust it.
Point.
I don't want to go buy an aftermarket part and have to try to program it, try to get your dealer to drop it, all this. look, we're not going to keep 85 PSI tires on these trucks. We're going to go put tires that are rated the same weight at 65, right? So if I'm at a 1 ton, I don't want 90 PSI back there. Okay. The next thing is, I really hope they're listening to this, and I'm a little agitated, right? Is the speedometer. You have GPS in every one of these trucks. So why can't you go put a 37 or a 38-inch tire on this truck, and why can't it pop up in the screen and update the BCM? Why can't it say, hey, we noticed your speedometer's 2 miles an hour off. Do you want to update? Point. Hit yes. Oh, great. Then that's going to protect them in their warranties.
Yeah.
It says, well, we don't program it. You get another 10% on your warranty, right? I mean, I don't care about that. I would rather that speedometer being right? I mean, I'm already speeding. I don't need it to be worse than it is, right? Like, I get pulled over. I want to know how fast I'm going, right?
Yeah.
And so it's just, I think those options that need to be user selectable, you know, and if you need to default it, because, you know, let's even say the auto start stop, right? I mean, default it and have a disclaimer or a waiver that we check, you know, in the screen and say, okay, we're good with this. Okay, I'm dropping it to 65 PSI. I think all manufacturers across the board, like, quit making us go aftermarket, just make it in the screens. I mean, y'all have the technology. So,
yeah.
I'm dealing with both right now in my Ram. I am dealing with the fact that I went from 33s to 35s and 4 miles an hour off at 70 miles an hour. And then on top of that, I'm running 50 PSI in my Falcon MTs that I got on there. And it's telling me constantly that I got to bump the fronts to 60 and the rears to 65. It cannot be. There's no way around it. Yep.
Good point. Good point. I'm reading Martin's here. Work with the government to allow the sale of base trucks prior to 2000. No cameras, no safety alerts. That would be wild. And, you know, I think it's possible because look what that Slate car manufacturer. Have you guys heard about that electric truck company, Slate? I mean, they're offering this base model truck that comes with like roll up windows and all these base options. Why can't they do something like this and give yourself that low cost truck? I think that's a great idea.
I think Ram did that with the tradesman for a long time. I think, you know, and the XL Ford, I haven't seen an XL Ford in a long time, but, you know, with the spoiling windows and the, you know, I remember those, but yeah, it's just, I don't know how much of a buyer's market there would be for that. You know, if you were a dealer and you were actually going to order that truck.
True.
I mean, a lot of people are, you know, they say that, and I've done some polls on it, but then it's like, they get to the dealer and they're like, hey, for $20 more a month, you can have carpet and power windows, you know, and stuff like that. So I don't know.
You bring up a good point. That's what a lot of people don't realize is if you own a dealership, are you going to hold on to a $50,000, $60,000 investment on your floor plan? And if you don't have the cash to pay for that, you're paying interest on that vehicle to sit on your lot. And if you got this super low option vehicle, it might be a tough one to sell.
It's like when you look at those King Ranches or those Platinums and they've got the rubber. I get it. If you're in the oil field, you want the rubber mat. But when you go to resell that thing and you see a Platinum or King Ranch with an XL mat in the bottom of it, you're like, I'm out.
Well, think about this for a second. I remember I was talking to my grandmother years ago to buy a microwave back in the 1950s when they first came out. I can't remember the actual time they came out. But I want to say it was like $3,000.
Wow.
And then I remember when we got our first flat screen TV, it was a plasma TV. Do you guys remember how expensive those were? Now, today, how much is a microwave? You can probably get a microwave for probably $50.
Right.
Yep.
You can also get a plasma, well, not a plasma TV. You can get a flat screen TV curved for probably under $1,000, a 50-inch probably.
$500 for a 70-inch TV. I just saw it at Walmart when I walked by there.
Needs about 3 of them.
Yeah,
no, I don't have enough room for them all, but I did want to get one.
Right. So the cameras, all the systems on these cars don't cost anything anymore. That's why I think it was godly. I don't remember where I saw it, but someone asked the manufacturer about this, and they said that they couldn't build a truck cheaper if they wanted to.
Wait, hold on. I think this was a recent video with Tim Kaniskis, and they asked him. They said, Tim, sub $40,000 truck. He goes, it'll never happen again. He goes, even if I stripped everything out of a tradesman, he said it might save $500. He goes, he goes, there's not $5,000 in content we could get rid of at this point. And actually it's funny because we just talked about this. Mark Dodge, actually, these guys got tradesman 2-wheel drive. What is it? Quad cab? Is that the smaller back door? I always get confused. Quad cab.
Yep.
Dude, these guys got brand new 25 Ram 1500 tradesman quad cab 2-wheel drives for like 32, 33 grand.
With the amazing Pentastar motor.
Yes, exactly. So if someone's wanting that low cost truck, dude, it's actually out there, and you just got to find the right dealer, but it's out there.
I think the kicker is, if you look at those low cost trucks, I think they could be produced. And I think they would be allocation only. I don't think you could make an open order, but I think the trick would be is having a lower emissions quality truck, because have y'all ever seen the price on a catalyst on a Power Stroke? Or
Oh, dude, you're 5-6 grand.
right? So think about that's what's adding because of the precious metals in those catalysts. That's what's adding to the cost of these trucks, right? I mean, you've got a $6,000, $7,000 exhaust system on these trucks. That's where the money, I think, if you look at all the trucks that have been coming out for the past 5 to 10 years, and the price are ramping up. And that's why, I think that Tim may say we can't build those, not with the emission standards and having to put that system on there, because, you add that 6-7 grand for that system. That's where the money difference is from a truck that used to be pre-emissions, with a muffler and a tailpipe, right? So I don't know, maybe you build,
to be
and allocate them. I don't know, but
to be fair, Ford already makes that today. It's called the Godzilla.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you really think about it, this thing's got a simple fuel system. It's no high pressure. It's got a $300 exhaust system on it. Push rod V8. It's just a basic old school big block engine. I mean, if you think about it, that's, in full fairness, that's what I did for the last 20 years is work in after treatment. And you'd see that $12,000 price tag on that diesel truck. It's not just the diesel engine, it's the exhaust system to make that thing meet emissions, and the EGR system and the EGR coolers and all that crap has added $8,000-$10,000 in cost on that vehicle. Yeah.
Excellent point.
Yeah. And this is where what I think will be interesting in the future is, and I saw a comment up above, I wanted to get to it finally, and I don't know your guys' thoughts on this. I think it could be a home run. Is this right here? Brock Loy says, can we all just agree the Ram Charger needs to make it to the market to see how it performs like they're claiming? JB gave the Pentastar a great review. So I think this Ram Charger, and I've talked about it a bunch of times on my channel, of every engine, every propulsion, everything out there right now, after 392, this is the game changer for Ram.
Yep.
Forget, in my opinion, I'd just drop the whole Ram Rev thing at this point. Like, if you see the electric truck market, it has shrank so much. It's already hit its peak. It's nothing against it. It's not that I'm like, oh man, I hate electric trucks. No, it's not that. I think for their purpose, they don't do very well. They don't tow long distance very well, but they got awesome performance, and there are reasons for it. If I owned a fleet company and I needed to tow payload 100 to 200 miles per day, and I didn't want to maintain fleet and fill up gas, I'd buy 10 of those F-150 Lightnings, and I'd have guys just charging them at night, no oil changes, no maintenance, no gas, run them forever. But the Ram Charger's the game changer, I think. I mean, the performance, the fuel economy, it's awesome. It's absolutely awesome. And Ram could stand out. There's not a competitor in the market. So I hope it comes out too.
Yeah. Well, electric trucks don't make sense. I mean,
essentially, like a leaky diaper. Like, hey, we're gonna go buy a new diaper. It leaks. We know it leaks.
Yeah.
Are you good with it? Yeah, give me that leaky diaper.
Yeah, EV truck is literally, I don't want to get into politics, but I can't help myself. It's like a car that identifies as a truck. Let's just be honest here. It's not a truck, because when you hook up a trailer to it, what happens to the range? And who can use that for actual truck stuff? Nobody.
Yeah. It's even what happened to the range on the highway, right? Because
100%.
Those numbers at 55 miles an hour, they're great on EVs, but you get out there doing 75 miles an hour on the highway, that range is half. Dude,
I did a video and I called it old school versus new school. I took F-150 Lightning versus F-150 5.0. And I did my loop I always do. I called C-Tech Mini. And when you calculated the MPGE, because that's what you should do, it came out to like 2 miles per gallon worse than the 5.0 gas engine. And people lost their mind on me, and they just said, oh, you're an EV hater and you're this and that. And I'm like, bro, this is basic math. I have no skin in this fight. I like the Lightning. I think it's cool. Like, I actually had a Lightning on order for 2 years, because when it originally came out, this thing was a $39,000 truck. You're going to get a $7,500 federal rebate, and I'm going to get A-Plan. I'm going to go get a full drive electric truck for 25 grand. Dude, I'd rather have that versus a minivan. I mean, that was my thought. I mean, that was literally my thought. This or a minivan, I'll take this. But then when 39 became 60, the value prop was shot, and then all the rebates and everything. So I made that video, proved that the cost per mile didn't make sense, and people said they just rip you. So I don't even like talking about EV stuff anymore, because it doesn't matter what you say, you just upset somebody and whatnot.
Yeah. Well, the Ram Charger is a heavy half ton. That's what we've been looking for in the market.
Exactly.
And just like the Silverado and Sierra EV trucks, I mean, look at the wheelbase those trucks have.
100%.
How heavy those trucks are.
Dude, for sure.
If they just put the Duramax diesel in that, we're golden.
Yeah. Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah. The problem with that Silverado EV, that's arguably the best one out there. It actually has some range, and it's actually got a really solid platform. It's just $94,000. That's the problem. You can't really get an affordable one for 50, 60 grand. So, and I think the Ram Charger, if it's going to be a $94,000 truck, I don't think it'll do well either. But if the truck can be in that 60 to 75 grand range, I think it'd be pretty sweet. Imagine having better than diesel like towing torque up a mountain. And then imagine having regenerative braking, charging your battery going down the hill. Wow, this thing's going to be incredible. Awesome braking, awesome acceleration, and no range anxiety.
Yeah, because of the hybrid. So you won't have to worry about, do we have a charger?
Exactly.
Let me look and see and make sure I'm going to have a charger in the next 100 miles, right?
100%.
Pull over and let it charge, right? Just sit there for a few minutes or walk in the store, let it charge while you're in the store. So I agree.
Awesome. Yeah. And I see Martin mention, I agree with Brock on the Ram Charger, the new Scout. Yeah. The Scout Harvester is basically the exact same thing, plug-in hybrid. And that thing looks sweet. The truck and SUV looks incredible. That's all I kind of got, guys. I don't know if any roundtable, any thoughts or anything we could talk extra tonight. I'm open to. We kind of covered some of the main points, talked about Ram's warranty, and talked about we'd all go gas HD if we were going to go over diesel. We all seem to think a GM seems to be the best towing. Yeah.
I think we did incredible for being 4 people on one thing. Everybody got to cover stuff. Nobody left out. And then we covered a lot of topics. I was expecting us to cover like 2 topics an hour.
For sure. I wanted to add a little bit of context when I made the comment about Doritos and Mountain Dew with Jason. So Jason and I have known each other a long time, over 20 years, and we've done a lot of road trips together. And Jason likes his Doritos and he likes his Mountain Dew. And it used to be a big thing when we do our road trip. This dude could just hammer these things. It was great. We've slept in McDonald's parking lots trying to go snowmobiling, and oh my gosh, we've done all kinds of crazy stuff. Actually, funny story, Jason bought a brand new F-150. I don't know if we ever shared this story before, not Jason, but we bought a brand new F-150. Yeah, no. This was your 5.0. Okay, so it's 2011. And he bought a brand new F-150, and we're going to pull my snowmobile trailer from Michigan to Montana. And we're all excited. We're like, man, my truck's a 2010. You know, this is old, antiquated technology with a 5.4. Jason's got the all-new Coyote. We're like, this thing's going to be awesome. Let's tow this trailer. So we're going through the Dakotas. About halfway through the Dakotas, we're like trying to figure out where a Walmart's at so we can get like hearing protection, because we've been listening to this Coyote revving at 5,000 RPMs for about 4 hours straight. And I'm about to lose my mind. I'm just twitching. This motor's screaming for 4 hours straight, just screaming. And we get to Montana. We met another friend and we hooked up our trailer to his truck, and he had a new Super Duty diesel. And I'll never forget, we get in this truck, and the next 4 hours of trip, we were all asleep within 10 minutes because this thing was just quiet and peaceful. And when Jason and I got home, we're like, dude, we're done with this 5.0. This thing is not a towing engine. Now the new 5.0 is better, but back in the day, dude, that thing should have just stayed in the Mustang.
Yeah.
Yeah, whole different world. But we used to do that all the time. We'd be watching the weather and literally be like, hey, dude, there's a 4-footer unicorn storm hitting Montana like in 3 days. You ready to go? We jump in a truck, drive 36 hours, park in a parking lot, snowmobile all day, crash in a parking lot or a cheap hotel, ride the next day, and then drive 36 hours home.
No joke. We did 72 hours of driving.
To ride for...
Yeah, to literally for 48 hours. So we drove for 72 hours to ride snowmobiles for 2 days. Yeah. before kids.
through the storms too.
Yeah.
It was always, most of the time you're going like 45 miles an hour down the highway in four-wheel drive high, pulling a trailer, loaded down, and struggling to stay the whole entire way you're going. Yeah, the good old days.
Just silly. Just silly. Now I'm mad when my weed whip doesn't work correctly. Context.
And it's electric.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I hope it was good for everybody. We'd like to do this more in the future. If you guys leave your comments, after this video uploads on all of our channels, you can still leave comments. So, feel free to reach out, and we'll do this again and more often. Appreciate
I had
it.
a lot of fun. I had an absolute lot of fun.
It was a good video.
Yeah. Appreciate you guys joining. This was great. Thanks, everybody.
Have a good one.